All right, everybody. Today we have a good friend of mine, Lane, on here. Now, Lane is a really cool guy. He actually has a background as a US Army veteran, which is really awesome. And after his military service, he got into the digital marketing and SEO space and started helping businesses all across the world with SEO and has become well regarded as an SEO expert in our industry. Recently, he's developed what we like to call the Spark framework, which is really cool. And I'm excited for him to dive into that today because, as everyone here knows, AI is the game when it comes to how people are looking for services and looking for businesses. And so I want him to talk a little bit about his research on that. But before we get into the nitty gritty, Lane, why don't you go ahead and just give everyone a brief synopsis of kind of your history and work experience if people don't know who you are?
Sure. Happy to. Really good to be with you, George, and be on your podcast here and talk with you and your audience. So I was a combat medic in the Army. You referenced that back in the Desert Storm days in the early 90s. I did work in the medical field for just a little while after I got out of the Army. But in 2010, give or take, I transitioned into the digital marketing industry. I started my own website and SEO company, and back then, that was a really interesting time actually, because I remember 2012 is when Google Places launched, and back then it was called Google Places. And that was when, the whole Maps ecosystem launched. And I knew then, that's kind of how I feel again now. Like, I felt really excited and like, wow, this is a whole new frontier of where businesses are going to get found, is in this new local maps area that Google's putting into search. And, obviously that became very true. That is now the number one driver for most local businesses, is still the Google Maps system or ecosystem. So yeah, back in 2010, I launched for the first 8 to 9 years of our agency. We served businesses directly and did websites, improved websites, did website dev and design, and then offered SEO to help them get those new websites found, and not just, be a nice brochure that no one was seeing. And then in 2012, we also started to incorporate local SEO strategies, because that's when kind of the Google Places ecosystem launched. And then, on that, on the heels of Google Places launching, then you had this whole review ecosystem that spawned because Google Reviews was popular, but then, Yelp and all these other review sites started to spawn off of that. And that became, a whole area of businesses' footprint was just their reviews, their online reputation. That became a whole new game, was just monitoring our online reputation in an online format. No longer did we have to worry about what people said to verbally one to one, human to human. Now we had to worry about what people were saying online about our business in the form of reviews and reputation. So that was, and then also on the cusp of Google Places launching was this whole directory listing ecosystem as well. Today we have directory listings or citation sites where we can list our business in, and that whole ecosystem spawned as well off on the cusp of Google Places launching in 2012. And alongside all that was the social media, explosion: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. All these social media platforms started to explode with usage as well. And this was all happening kind of between 2012 and 2017. That 5 years saw just massive shifts in the landscape. Businesses now had to have a footprint in all of these different ecosystems, manage it, have it become cohesive and consistent, so that it wasn't confusing to the algorithms in terms of your online footprint. And so there's new softwares that manage, reviews, and, all this stuff was happening. It was pretty fun time. And alongside that, I saw some gaps and opportunities in the worlds of SEO. And so in 2015, I set out to start to build our own software platform to solve some of our own challenges, inefficiencies, what have you, in our own SEO strategies in our own agency, but decided early on that we would build that software not only for ourselves, but we would actually solve an industry problem and offer that solution also to other agencies so that they could use it in their SEO strategy, in their agency, for their clients as well. And in late 2018, we launched that software platform called Signal Genesis. Software platform was offered to agencies. That was our primary audience and customer. And they in turn would then leverage our platform inside their SEO strategy to help their customers get found in search. Our software platform was and still is one of the only software platforms that actually influences the algorithm. There's lots of SEO software out there that does research, does reporting, provides data analytics and what have you. There's very few software systems that actually influence the algorithm when you use it. And that was this type of SaaS or platform that we built at Signal Genesis that I sold, that was acquired last year in 2024. I sold that software platform with my co-founder to Search Atlas Group, who now owns Signal Genesis, and that's now been integrated into the Search Atlas platform as well. And so going back just a little bit, back in 2018, 2019, in the first quarter of 2019, I decided to take our digital marketing agency, which was at that point still a generalist agency. We served all types of businesses. And I decided to go into the white label niche or industry with our agency. So we stopped being a generalist agency. I stopped serving businesses directly and unified my efforts by helping agencies directly in providing white label services. And I still have that agency today, Quantum Agency. So today I have Quantum Agency, and we provide white label websites and SEO and digital marketing solutions to other agencies. And we do that. We're kind of like their back end fulfillment partner. And then I also just launched a new venture with my older son, Luke, Franchise AIQ, which is bringing 3 very distinct, very powerful AI solutions to the franchise world of advanced voice AI solution, a AI-powered dead lead database reactivation solution where we revive dead leads, and an AI-powered local SEO product or solution as well. And then, as you mentioned, I just launched my new book called The Spark Framework, which is both an informational/educational book around AI search, what's happening in this massive shift that we're seeing from Google search to ChatGPT, Perplexity, and the like. And it's not only just educational or informational, I actually lay out an entire blueprint of how either a business or an agency can actually implement a blueprint or a framework, the Spark framework, into an AEO strategy to actually be found in the answer engine. So it doesn't leave the reader hanging with, like, oh, that's great, now what do I do? And we actually give you the blueprint, the framework to actually implement into your business. So that's a quick 15-year synopsis.
Right. That's awesome. And so as you know, a lot of our audience is home service businesses, roofers that are kind of on the up and coming. So a lot of the people here understand the concept of SEO. Like, it's kind of, at this point, it's the standard, right? Everyone knows they need to be getting found in search. They need to be getting found online so people can, have the reviews and have the this, and they understand that, right? But as you mentioned, the landscape is changing drastically because now we have AI-based search. I mean, ChatGPT just launched their new search engine, Atlas, which I've been using a ton, and it's really interesting. And I wanted to ask you, for a lot of our listeners, what are kind of the top visibility problems you see these types of businesses facing right now? Is it in something like AI search? Is it still in something like traditional SEO? What are you seeing here?
The biggest problem is that, and then let's just take it this is for the businesses that have been paying attention and have been, deploying an SEO strategy inside their business, right, for years, right? Like, that's not like something that they're not doing right now, right? So for businesses that have been doing that and have invested in that area and have been getting that predictable, monthly, weekly, daily, even just lead flow, they're getting the traffic and the leads that come from the traditional searches that have been happening largely in Google. Google's, still has 90% or so of the traditional search engine share. What they're losing is the overall market of searches are fading quickly in Google and are going to the likes of ChatGPT and Perplexity, who are right now number 1, number 2 in total monthly queries or searches. So the biggest problem that businesses, especially service-based businesses, are facing is that they're seeing like this search traffic that they had evaporate. Like literally 20 to 50% of their search traffic that they were seeing is now just gone. Like, it's just evaporated and it's gone over to ChatGPT. So that's problem one. Like, hey, what was very dependable for us is now not very dependable. You layer on top of that, because of that dynamic, you have more businesses going, well, we need to advertise. And so you have more businesses going into the pool of advertisers, which is driving up advertising costs, which is driving up your CPC and your CPAs, and you're driving down your ROAS. So it's a two-headed monster, right? Like, and then the third problem that they're facing is the vast majority of businesses that were showing up or even still are showing up in traditional searches in Google are 100% invisible inside ChatGPT. Because when you go to ChatGPT and you go, who are the best roofing companies in Denver, Colorado? It's going to give me 3 to 5 at most roofers, right? Not 10 blue links plus 3 map links plus a couple of videos and a couple of images and a couple of ads on top and bottom. Like, in a normal Google search page, you might see 20 different options, that you as a user or as a searcher, might be able to pick from. In ChatGPT, I get 3 recommendations of the best roofers that ChatGPT has determined who are the authorities in Denver, and that's all I get. And here's the crazy dynamic: the people who go to ChatGPT and do that type of query are converting at 40 to 60%. They're converting at the same rate or even higher than a friend's recommendation. Like if I went to you and say, hey, George, who's the best roofer in Denver? I know you live close. Who's the best roofer? You go, well, here's 2 guys I know that, have done a pretty good job, but I know I've heard do a great job. I'd be like, okay, if I go to ChatGPT and I do the same search, I'm literally picking up the phone and calling them right now. So we're seeing a conversion rate even higher. And so for the businesses that aren't showing up in the likes of ChatGPT, they see this erosion of search traffic. It's gone. It's not being replaced because they're not showing up. They're invisible in ChatGPT. And by the way, what I mean invisible is, there are literally only 3 to 4 recommendations. Like, it's not like page 2 and page 3 like you have in a Google search result, right? There's 3 recommendations. I did a search the other day. I said, who's the best roofing company in Littleton, Colorado? Just as I was doing a search in a webinar I was doing, and it gave me 1 result. One company was recommended. And so those are the top 3 problems. 1, our normal dependable search traffic that we were getting from our investment in SEO every month is now not yielding nearly as much traffic or as many leads. We're paying the same, but we're getting a smaller ROI on that same SEO spend, and that's hurting our actual month top line revenue because we're getting less business because of it. So then they go to ads. They go, all right, we got to layer on ads because we got to fill in this gap of leads we were getting from SEO and we're not getting anymore. But advertising costs have gone way up and performance has gone down. And so that kind of sucks too. And then if they're invisible inside ChatGPT because they're really not the authority in their space and they're not showing up for those normal queries, they're not able to replace that search traffic. And so those are the 3 biggest problems I see in most local businesses. And it is like a 3-headed monster. Top 3, and it is literally, and they all kind of intertwine and are all connected.
That's awesome. And I'm not an expert at all when it comes to this sort of thing, but one thing that I've kind of realized in my own searches and things like that, is that ChatGPT seems to put a really heavy emphasis, and I know Google does too, but they seem to put a really heavy emphasis on reputation, and not just through Google reviews, but other things too. Like it'll even cite a Reddit thread, or it'll cite a Thumbtack thread where there was a comment that wasn't responded to or something, right? Do you see that as being the case?
100%. Which is kind of why I laugh when I hear people say, well, if you're doing SEO, then you're doing AEO, or there's no difference between SEO and AEO. And I'm like, well, just as an example, in SEO, for the last, 5 to 10 years, I've told people, businesses, for your own self-interest, for your own best interest, do not focus on getting Yelp reviews. Yelp sucks. Yelp is militant. They will hunt you down if you get into their funnel. They decline reviews, the good ones, the real ones, and they oftentimes let the bad reviews go through, even though they're fake, just to try and get you into their funnel and try and help you solve your problem as a business. And so, it was a very, I would tell businesses avoid Yelp. The problem is today, ChatGPT is using Yelp reviews as its primary source for reputation. It uses Thumbtack, it uses Angie, it uses Reddit, yes, other sources, but the primary reputation source that ChatGPT uses is Yelp reviews. And so guess what? This isn't an SEO tactic. This is an AEO tactic. You, as a business, need to go out and get your Yelp reviews. Stay out of their funnel, decline their calls, don't pay for their advertising, but you need to get your customers to leave you reviews on your Yelp profile, because ChatGPT is using it as its number one source right now, today, for reputation, to your point.
Interesting. Interesting. And I know that you also have some, since you're with Franchise AIQ, you have some experience with multi-location businesses.
Yeah.
And I assume that you do as well through your experience with all of your other endeavors. How is the visibility game different for multi-location brands, franchises, things like that, compared to a one-location local service, especially in today's world? I mean, what extra layers are there that matter for those types of businesses?
Yeah, great question. So you just obviously, with every location added, you have a layer of complexity in the strategy that's just, there by force, because of that location and its unique differences from the other location or locations. So one layer, obviously, is just really good GBP management. You have to manage all your locations and their Google listing very well. You're going to have a Yelp strategy, a Yelp review strategy. As much as it sucks, as much as I hate to say it, it's just the reality. Like, if you want to be found on ChatGPT, you better have a Yelp review strategy today, alongside your Google business review. So, I would be offering the Yelp link and the GBP link, and maybe my Angie, profile, or a Thumbtack profile, or a third offering as well. But like, Yelp is number one right now for AEO, whereas, for local SEO, it's still your Google reviews. You need Google, and you really need both, right? Like, you can't, it's really important for local SEO inside Google Maps. Like, your Google review velocity is really, really important. It's a signal for ranking. Conversely, if you don't get any Yelp reviews, you're really risking visibility inside, local queries in ChatGPT and Perplexity. So you really need to be getting both, and it really needs to be a focus. Like, I'm serious about that. Like, that needs to be a real serious focus by businesses, both GBP reviews and Yelp reviews. So good GBP management with a really good, solid, robust review strategy to really get, and you may even look at, because it's so important, like, you may even look at an incentivization of your customers to try and get reviews. Be creative, figure out ways to reward them for taking their time to go to, especially if they do both, to go into both your Yelp and your GBP listings and leaving you a glowing review. Like, that's worth gold, literally. And those reviews, they live forever, right? So, like in 2012 into 2015, when reviews were like the thing, like, reputation management just became a whole cottage industry in those 3 or 4 years. Today, you need to like double down and focus on your reviews. It's really important. Another layer is really important, especially for multi-location, is your website and your website architecture or structure around the multi-locations. Most franchises, most multi-location enterprises get this wrong. Their website's not properly set up for multi-location. The URL structure is not right. The silos aren't set up. There's no way to really drive authority to any of those locations within the overall website structure. They just have like a location page, and you're like, well, no, each location now needs to build authority unto itself. All right. Especially if you want those locations to be showing up in answer engine queries, because the only ones that show up, the 2, 3, 4, 5 recommendations that answer engines give, are the top authorities that the answer engine has determined to be the authorities in that space for that query. And that is coming from multiple data sources, multiple signals that it's querying and looking for. And the websites are a really, really important piece. Like, if you look at any of the sources in ChatGPT queries, you're going to see a couple of websites that were actually like crawled and referenced and sourced and cited as part of the response. And then that same website is the company that also gets the recommendation. Okay. But there's only like usually 2 or 3, maybe at most 1 or 2 websites that the answer engine is actually coming back with and going, here's one of our sources, right? Okay. Well, if I go, who are the best roofers in Denver, Colorado? There's, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of roofers. roofing companies in that metro area, and only one or two websites are actually being cited, sourced, cited, and the same company that is getting actually the recommendation for that query. Like, okay, out of several hundred roofing companies, however many, maybe thousands, I don't know. You need to be like one of the top 2 to 3 authorities from your website. Like your website now has to become one of the top 2 to 3 authorities on the topic of roofing if you want that source and citation. So what does that tell us? You better put some serious investment into your website. It needs to have proper architecture and structure. It needs to be deep in content. I can't tell you how many roofing, HVAC, plumbing, like all of these service-based businesses, I can't tell you how many of their websites are really, really quite bad still today in 2025. Thin content, like on the whole site's on one homepage. Like, yeah, when you hit services, it just drops down to a small little section of the homepage that's dedicated to your services you provide. There's no blog, there's no structure. Yeah, those days are over if you want to compete in the answer engines, and I'm honestly to a large extent in Google search as well, because Google search is now heavily relying on the website for its signals around who the authorities are on a topic.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I think that especially like even in my own research, I agree with you, seeing like, there's maybe 3 websites that get pulled, and oftentimes they are the websites of the top 2 or 3 recommendations that they're giving,
Exactly.
right? Which is kind of funny because it's like, kind of gaming the system at that point, but that's how it works. Do you see that that's how ChatGPT is going to continue to do so, or do you think they're going to get more advanced in how they recognize where they're pulling data from?
No, I mean, I think that this will continue. I believe that we'll see small shifts in their data sources where they decide, but that's happened with Google search and SEO for the last,
Right.
15 years. Like, Reddit was never a thing in Google, many years ago. But now Reddit's like one of the top authorities, and it's also a big authority in AEO as well. So, Google has changed its sources on what data sources it values and which ones it devalues, and I think that'll happen with the answer engines as well. But in large part, the way that they research and query data points and then compile that, parse that, segment it, and then provide responses, that technology is largely going to stay in place. And I think there'll be some shifts here and there, but I think in large part what you have to do for AEO to show up there is the strategies are not going to change a lot, just like it hasn't changed a lot for SEO. There's always these black hat, strategies that come and go. They come and go, and they're legit. Like, they will actually game the algorithm. They'll actually work for a little while. But then they go because the answer engines or the search engines figure out that they're being gamed by this, whatever strategy, and they plug that hole, and then that black hat strategy no longer works. And I've never focused in the black hat world very much, because I really believe if you're like a real agency doing real work for real businesses, you would be doing them a disservice by embarking on trying to do all those black hat things to them just to game it here and game it there, because you're putting their whole business at risk.
I was going to say, because a lot of times that puts their reputation at risk, not really yours. I mean, yes, yours too, but
their reputation, but even worse, the entire business. Like,
like
if you go invisible inside Google search as a business today, tell me you're going to survive.
Yeah,
you probably won't. Like, literally, you're probably getting 50 to 60% of your calls and your leads from your Google listing and maybe some residuals from your website. And then you supplement that maybe with some Google ads, and then maybe you supplement that by buying leads. But buying leads, it typically sucks. Like you're buying a lead that's already kind of rehashed, and you're competing with 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 other companies simultaneously for that same lead or whatever. So the best leads and the best customers for most local businesses has always come from their Google listing. And so like if that starts to dry up, you're in trouble.
Yeah, no, seriously.
Or if you go invisible because black hat techniques, and all of a sudden your Google listing gets banned and your website get, basically de-indexed, like it's like being invisible. Like you, as a business, like you're really, really screwed, right? And so the black hat stuff never really pays off. I believe in looking at what are the evergreen best practices that we know work, but we just got to do it better and more of it than anybody else who's doing the evergreen white hat or best practices that are acceptable.
Mhm.
And yeah, we tread in the gray area for sure. There is definitely gray area around terms and guidelines, but the gaming of the search engines and now the answers, I'm sure some of that stuff will happen, but for the businesses that actually want to like really survive and really not just put everything at risk by trying to game things, the best practices are gonna largely be the same in 5 years, I predict.
Okay, interesting. And I feel like this is kind of me just asking all my own questions because I'm just so curious. But
Sure.
also in a lot of my own research and searches as well, I've noticed that the answers that I'm given by platforms like ChatGPT or Perplexity are also dependent on kind of my history as a user, right? Like if I search specific things about a topic in previous threads, and then I continue to search more additional things that are relevant to that same topic, it will pull the context from what I've already asked it about, right? So, for example,
Sure.
in local service business, right? If you're trying to learn, if you're a homeowner and you're trying to learn more about, okay, well, I have this leak, what could be wrong with it, right? And you're conversing with ChatGPT about the issue you're having, and then you're asking it for suggestions. What types of services can fix this, or is there a certain material, is there a product, whatever, right? And then you then go and ask for recommendations on providers, right? Companies. I've noticed in my personal experience that it will then base its recommendations on questions you've already asked and then pull content from those sources, right? That are specific
Memory.
to
Yeah.
questions you've already asked, right? And so that adds a whole nother layer, right? Of like, it's so much more individualized than what I feel like Google has been in the past, because people are asking very specific questions for very specific use cases now. And I think in a post, or maybe in your white paper that you had posted, you talked about how a lot of inquiries on these search engines or answer engines are much more long tail, meaning that they're not roofer near me. They're asking
Right.
very long
They're on their
paragraphs.
phone. They're on their Chat GPT
Yeah,
app on their phone, and they hit the microphone icon, and they go, my effing faucet is leaking, and I
yeah,
need a restoration company that does water damage repair like now. And that's what they speak in
yeah,
as Chat GPT. And that's where NLP comes in. That's natural language processing,
yeah.
right? And so from a local SEO standpoint, and this is again another difference between SEO and AEO.
Mhm.
In local SEO, we're still very much focused on keywords as a strategy. Like we're targeting keywords that get the traffic that then drive leads. And so to your point, like people go to Google search and they just type in best roofers near me, or roofers near me, or whatever, and yet in the likes of Chat GPT, it's they're talking in natural language. They're having a conversation, right?
Yeah,
And that's NLP. We don't have to focus much on NLP in local SEO.
right,
In AEO, it's exclusively the focus. Like you have to have NLP into your content strategy, or you are simply not going to, the answer engines will not like your content.
right.
So there's a big difference there in content strategy between local SEO and AEO, or you could call it local AEO. Whatever the case may be. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like how people even converse with it, and then that's not dissimilar to what we have had in Google for eons, with
Right.
cookies. In our browser cookies, Google is
Fair.
getting data of
True.
what we're searching and where we're going and all that data. And then all that data provides context into what we're into and what we're doing. And, and so the answer engines just simply have a more advanced system than cookies. They have memory and they have a user like literally conversing with it in
Right.
everyday language or with everyday types of context and queries. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm sure like I'm using Perplexity and Chat GPT now way more than I use Google search. I used to
Yeah.
use Google search for, especially for like local businesses. Like if I want a local restaurant or, I don't know. My behavior is still kind of mapped to Google Maps. I go to Google Maps, the
Oh
app,
yeah.
a
Same.
lot,
Yeah.
like local businesses. But yeah, like I go to Perplexity or Chat GPT, and I'll be like, I want to, like I'll literally just talk to it and be like, I want to know this and this and this, and I actually get a better response from Chat GPT when I talk to it like that than if I just
Oh
go,
yeah.
roofers near me, right? Like and so the answer engines love that context of natural language process. They love the natural language, the way humans speak. They're actually wired to actually receive queries in natural language and then provide a better response with natural language.
Right.
So your content strategy has to be married to natural language processing and answering a lot of questions in real human language. And so that takes even more thinking and more research around what are our what's our target? What is our ICP, our ideal client profile? Like if I'm a roofing company and I go, well, like what is my ideal client like? Well, they're like 40 to 50 years old. They own a home that's about, anywhere from 15 to 50 years old. They live in certain areas. They make this certain amount of money, whatever, right? Like you got to know your ideal client. Then you got to go, all right, well, now what are their questions? What are their pain points? What are their problems? You got to really get into their head, because that's how you can then actually have a content strategy that addresses those things in a natural language or a natural human way.
Yeah.
And the other big dynamic that we haven't talked about is that these answer engines do have memory.
Yeah.
And so they have memory about what you're searching as a user, what all your context, but then they also have memory around the searches that they conduct, or the queries that they conduct, right? And then they have memory around what they find, what the AI finds, query by query by query.
Right.
So where this really becomes important is that if you're a business that shows up in the answer engines today, early in this new frontier, the memory of you being cited as a source, your website or your Yelp profile or your BBB profile, whatever it is, those things stick in the answer engine memory.
Right.
The more At a certain point, when an AI engine does enough query around a certain topic, it develops a corpus of knowledge, a knowledge base, a corpus of knowledge around those queries, and the memory sticks. And so it doesn't have to use the same processing power to go and do all the same research all over again, right? The algorithm works much the same way.
And not just from your own searches, but from everybody's searches, right? Is the totality of who's searching.
Exactly. And what it's finding in actually, in any given topic or.
Exactly.
And so if you're an early mover here and you get your business cited and visible in these answer engines around these topics and queries, you'll be sucked into the memory. And if you don't show up or appear now, you are at greater and greater risk every month that goes by. Now, this is a fast moving thing. This is like month by month by month. This isn't something we look at and go, well, in 3 years we'll see some movement here. Now, like in 3 months, we'll see massive movement here. Okay.
Right.
The adoption rate of ChatGPT is just to give your audience the scope of what's happening here. ChatGPT took 12% of the search traffic from Google over the last 12 months. They're gaining 1% a month.
Wow.
On the high end, it could be said that it's 14%. So it could be more than a percentage a month. 12 to 14% of search traffic has gone to ChatGPT alone. That's not including Perplexity, okay?
Right.
Alone in the last 12 months. So this is a very fast-moving ship.
Yeah.
And the memory is going to stick. And so the businesses that go, well, I want to just kind of wait and see how this all plays out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are like, if you wait a year or 2 years, you will have to spend maybe 3 to 10x the money that you have to spend today to try and get into the answer engines, because you're going to have to displace not just the business that's being cited or the competitor, but you're going to have to really influence the memory that's now in around these queries and searches. And so that will take a lot more effort to do that in 2 and 3 years than it does right now. And so it is kind of I think to me, I am a business owner, and it's an imperative for me as a business owner. But if I were like any other local service-based business, it's an imperative. Do not wait on this for 2 or 3 years. You will hate yourself if you're still actually a viable business in 2 or 3 years.
Right. Because it's just crazy to see how.
Think about.
Go ahead.
I would say about this. Think about the businesses that didn't adopt to local SEO and still stayed with no, I'm going to keep running my ads in the yellow pages.
Yellow pages, yeah.
What's the yellow pages?
Yeah, literally.
Do you even know what that is? Do we even get that anymore? Right? And so this is one of those fundamental, massive structural shifts in commerce, in business that is happening. And you can either be an early adopter, or you can be one of the ones who still wants to stick with the yellow pages,
Right. No, that makes sense. And I think it's just amazing to me how quickly everything has moved when you put it in context, right? Because, sitting here, living here, and not really, and if you're not in the know all the time, you can it kind of passes you by to know how quickly everything's moving. But if you remember, ChatGPT as we know it today launched in 2022, right? And that was 3 years ago. And that's like nothing. In the grand scheme of things, that's like nothing. Like it barely has come on the scene. And you've seen how much it's changed since then. You've seen how many different applications AI has launched into at the genesis of ChatGPT. Now you have things like AI voice. Now you have things like conversational AI that are AI employees talking to you. Now you have things like ChatGPT Atlas and AEO and all these crazy things that have come about in just 3 years. So can you imagine what another 3 years is going to bring? Because I was just talking to a roofing franchise brand president yesterday about this, but like generative AI has kind of come and went. Like that's kind of was the big thing for a while. And it's like, okay, cool. We understand that, right? Agentic AI is kind of what we're in right now of like having AI do things for you. And that's kind of the big thing that everyone's talking about. But then there's the next reasonable step, which is physical AI, right? Robotic AI, which is letting AI do things in the physical world that combine both agentic and generative and kind of just plop it down in front of you. And so I think it's just insane. And I don't think that, especially in home service and local business, I mean, unfortunately, that industry tends to be laggards when it comes to technology anyway. And I think that that's just an unfortunate truth. But especially now with how quickly everything is moving, I think it's even more imperative than it was in the Yellow Pages days to at least understand the technology and know where you could be using it to improve. I mean, you don't have to become an AI expert to and your business isn't going to go in the ground in 6 months because you don't know anything about AI, but you should at least be understanding it and learning about it every single day.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I liken it. I like to think the analogies are really helpful for me. Like, if you're a roofing company today and you go, well, let's just kind of see how this whole AI thing goes, and you're not really as a company owner. Like, if you're the CEO, you're the owner, and you're not going like, how do I actually implement these things into my business? How do I leverage AI in as many areas of my business as I can, so that I can stay competitive, so that I can be a leader as this new frontier evolves. In 3 years, it's going to be like you're a roofing company and you're bringing all your roofing materials to the job site with your horses, and
Right.
like you're towing your trailers with your horses to your job site. That's like I liken it to that. Like, if you didn't, imagine if a roofing company didn't evolve and like start using actually, motorized transportation to take their supplies to customer job sites and let their
Right.
salespeople go to, like, if your salespeople show up to the sales appointments at the customers' houses on their horses. Like, that's stupid, right? And we think about that today, and it's like, yeah, it's ludicrous to think about a roofing company operating that way. But you don't in this one, you don't want to wait, because again, we're not getting 20 blue links and 3 map listings and ads and a couple of infinite number of pages that we can scroll through if we really want to. In the answer engines, we are getting 1 to 5 recommendations at most.
Yeah.
And the consumers that are taking those searches are directly converting at a high rate, meaning they're not going anywhere else. Their journey, that consumer journey, is contracting down to a search, or a query, a response, a conversion.
Mm.
Whereas it used to be like, well, let me check out some more reviews, and so even that is changing. And so that dynamic, if you're not on it now, you might as well like go back to horses for transportation.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And I like how you mentioned how the consumer journey of the actual, buying journey of a homeowner is drastically changing. And I think that me and you have similar ideals on how AI can be further implemented into that consumer journey to make it more efficient, more, better for the consumer, better for the customer, but also better for the business. So talk about some of your philosophies on where else you see AI playing a role into local service businesses, not just in the generative search realm, but also in what tools can they be using, not only in search.
So I think for most service-based businesses, number one, I don't think it's about tools, because most service-based businesses don't have the time to even do the research on the tools to understand which, like, if there's 3 tools, which one's actually going to solve my problem the best at the best price.
Right.
I think that's where agencies come in. Like, I think they really
Right.
need an agency slash consultant slash fractional CMO slash CAIO to
Mm-hmm.
help them leverage the tools and the strategies to be found,
Right.
and to and like a CAIO can actually go, all right, here are all the ways that we can actually leverage AI in the business from a marketing standpoint, from an operational standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, and there are a number of ways. A few examples is just to kind of directly answer your question. You and I have both talked about it, conversational/voice AI. That should be answering phones. I mean, the technology today is better than what humans can do 95% of the time, unless you have a absolute superstar
Yeah.
on your team who always answers the phone and always has that great voice and works 12 hours a day and never calls in sick, then you might be able to compete with, conversational voice AI. But outside of that rare instance, conversational voice AI can do a much better job answering your phones as a business
Yeah.
than any human team or any answering service or call center, and cheaper too.
Right.
So we get better and cheaper. I take that as a business owner. That's a win-win, right? Like if I can get better
Right.
results and it's cheaper than what I'm currently paying for worse results, like sign me up, right?
Right.
So that's a huge one. AI can be leveraged within that entire customer journey from suspect to prospect to lead to
Right.
customer to post customer or post service experience. AI
Yeah.
can be involved in that entire customer journey, helping to automate it, helping making it more personal. So that's one obviously big way.
Yeah. 100%. But
We've
real
been
quick
implementing
before,
AI in a lot of our operational systems, like just, like
yeah.
I have now AI, I have all of my team members have an AI assistant that they
Mm,
rely on daily, bounce IDs off of, get help with. Like it's literally a daily assistant. Why wouldn't every company, at least in their operational, like obviously if you're a roofer, like your tech guys that are out on the roofs don't need AI, right?
right.
But the sales guys or sales gals inside the office selling the roofing jobs could be using AI.
Yeah.
The marketing assistants could be using AI. The office assistant can be using AI. The CEO can be using AI every day.
Yeah.
So there's real world implementations beyond just marketing. Because marketing, I think, kind of seems like to be the obvious way to
Right.
use AI, but there's way more ways that it can be implemented inside of a real world company.
Yeah, and I agree. I think especially with the introduction of agent mode in ChatGPT and ChatGPT Atlas, specifically with agent mode. I mean, if you have a business account, if you have a business account in ChatGPT Atlas and use agent mode, I mean, can be one of the most mind blowing things for productivity that you can think of. I mean, I've used it personally to help me with creating content and editing content and posting content and all of these great things. And I just think of in back when I did sales in the seamless gutter world, I'm just thinking of the millions of ways that I could have used that to follow up with leads. Like the cool thing about Atlas and agent mode within Atlas is it's practically like what you say, an AI assistant, but it has its own computer, pretty much is how I like to think about it, right? It can go do its own things on your own computer, right? So I think as a salesperson, what would I be doing? What's one thing that I lacked in? Well, one thing that I did lack in was follow up, right? Like I wasn't very good at following up with leads. Like I was just chasing new ones because I could make more money selling the new ones than going back and following up with all the old ones, right? And if you don't already have that process optimized, you should. But if you don't, you can use something like ChatGPT Atlas and agent mode to say, okay, you know what? Here's my CRM, right? Boom, here's my CRM. You have access to it because you have your own computer and you have my browser, right? Why don't you go ahead and find me every lead that I've submitted an estimate for over the past 3 months? And if they haven't moved forward or indicated that they were going to move forward, can you go ahead and send them a personalized outreach message based on the context of the estimate and any previous conversation? And
Yep.
it can go do that, right? Like that is a
Yep.
crazy thing that was not possible 2 months ago. And now you can. And it's just
Yep.
going to keep getting better and better. And so I agree with you fully that of course, there's great ways to use it in marketing and in sales and in all of those obvious ways. But I think in the operations and the daily activities of your employees, that's one of the most impactful ways I think you can use it because you can increase productivity by tenfold. I mean, if you're using it in the example that I just gave, that salesperson can then let that agent run and do all of its follow up while he's already out going out doing new estimates, right? So I can leave my laptop in my truck, boom, it's following up with all my old leads. By the time I'm done with the estimate that I'm at, I can come back and see, okay, I sent out 100 messages, personalized messages, and I got 4 responses. There's 4 more people I can go visit today, right? how cool is that? And so
Yeah.
along those
Here's where I think the
lines,
gap is.
yeah, go ahead.
I think the big gap is and will continue to actually widen
Hmm.
is that there already is an abundance of tools. We'll just call them tools, right?
Right.
Even ChatGPT in and of itself and at the Atlas browser is a tool, right?
Yeah.
So there is an abundance of tools. There is no shortage of tools, and there will continue to be even more, just a proliferation of this tool and that tool and this tool and that tool. And the challenge or the gap is that the decision maker, the company owner, the CEO, and even if they have a C-suite, they have a CMO, a COO, things like that. They are not experts in AI technology, the tools.
Mm.
And so they're going to need a CAIO or an agency slash consultant to come alongside them as a company and help them leverage, implement, deploy tools and strategy, because they really got to work together, right? The tool
Right.
left to itself is useless. It's got to have strategy and someone using it or conducting it.
Right.
And so that's where I see the gap is that the last thing you as a company owner that owns a roofing company or an HVAC company or a restaurant or a medical facility, the last thing you need to be doing is trying to figure out which tool you're going to use for conversational AI
Yeah.
or which tool you're going to use to try and help your salespeople become more efficient. Like you need to hire an agency or a consultant to come alongside you and let them do that work
Right.
because that's where they're proficient, that's their daily expertise, and then you can stick, in doing what you do best. And so I think that that will be actually a widening gap. And I think the
Mm.
agencies of old, the traditional agencies that do SEO and PPC, those things are still needed, and the companies are not going to be able to still do those themselves. There's a very like high level of technical proficiency needed to do SEO or manage websites. And even though AI can create a website today, someone still has to manage it. Someone still has to add content to it. There still has to be a strategy behind it. Otherwise, that website that you create with AI is still just a good brochure that almost no one will
Right.
see.
Right.
So that's where I think the gap is. And that's where I say, if you're a company owner listening to this today, find an expert, find a consultant, find a CAIO or something along that lines that can help you
Right.
leverage the AI in your business. Because if you try to do it yourself, you could literally spend just and waste hours
Yeah.
and hours and hours tinkering with this, tinkering
Yeah.
with that, trying to figure this out. And if it's not your area of genius and expertise, like you will waste time and you could literally put your company at risk of not growing,
Right.
especially because this space is moving so fast. Like
Yeah.
you don't have time to be running alongside this train. This train is a bullet train, and you're either on it or you're off it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with the tools aspect. I think there will never be a shortage of tools and things to use AI for. But I do agree there's going to be a knowledge gap, right? And it's the people who solve the knowledge gap, they're going to be the ones that succeed. And obviously, I mean, just knowing the friends that I have here in Colorado that have roofing companies, I mean, I think of Steve of Red Rock Roofing. I just had him on the podcast not too long ago, and he barely has time to like he's doing those other things, right? Like he's leading a team, he's building a sales team, he's leading this roofing company from the front. And so he doesn't have time to sit down for 2 hours every single day, 3 hours every single day, and learn, okay, what tool am I going where am I going to use AI? And then, oh, what tool is the best use case? And
Exactly.
how do I actually put that in here? Like, how do I actually implement that? Like, you hire people for that stuff. That's what you do as a leader. You find someone who's more knowledgeable than you at the topic, and then you bring them in to do the implementation, right? So I think there's going to be a huge
Which I
opportunity. Go ahead.
I'll say that's I think that's the biggest gap is the
Yeah.
implementation gap.
Yeah.
Because even today, like knowledge, like we can go to ChatGPT and you have like at your fingertips, you have access to like the best knowledge in the world on any topic. Like it's
Yeah.
at your fingertips. Like you can get, the answer of a doctor, around your medical question and ChatGPT. And now, yes, you have to check it. And yes, it could be wrong. But I mean, tell me the last time you found humans to be 100% right 100% of the time, right? Like
Right. Right.
make mistakes too, but the knowledge is there. I think it's the implementation gap is really the big
Okay.
gap is because it's like, the average company owner is just not going to know how to implement this and deploy it in their company. They're going to need someone to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which tool is right? And then how do we actually get this deployed into our company so that's actually making a measurable difference?
Yeah.
It's giving us lift, it's creating efficiencies, it's cutting our costs, whatever, or all the
Mm-hmm.
above.
Yeah. I think the implementation piece gives young people that are my age or younger a huge opportunity to get into an
Yes.
industry where
Yes.
historically young people have been declining from for years. I mean, we've heard the stories for 10 years about how young people aren't getting into the trades. Young people don't want to work with their hands, don't want to do whatever, right? We're seeing an uptick in that, not only because the job market for traditional white collar professions is getting harder and harder. And so there's a lot more people going into the trades. I can name 10 of my friends who have done so in the past 3 years, right? But there also is a huge opportunity for young people who are more technically inclined to get into the trades as these implementers. Not even, you don't even have to have your own
Got it.
business, right? You can come into a business and work W-2, work under that brand, and just be their AI implementer, right? Be their technology person, be the person that understands how to use these tools. And so I think
I
that,
think the like fractional CAIO slash
yeah,
AI consultant is a huge industry that's going to explode,
yeah,
right? Because the average plumbing company owner, restaurant owner, med spa owner, they
oh,
know their trade, they know their skill, and that's what they're good at. They're good at helping grow that, but implementing, knowing, understanding, implementing AI into their business is going to be a strategic relationship that they form. To your point,
yeah, yeah. And I
huge
think
opportunity.
every time I hear some colleagues or people my age that are college students or college age people complain about a job market and things like that, which is reasonable, right? Because I mean, it's
Tough.
the traditional way of what's
And
been taught for
AI is displacing a lot of those
yeah,
entry level jobs that
exactly,
a college age student would get out of college, go get that entry level job. Well, guess what? AI just took that entry level job
yeah,
in mass quantities, right? And so
exactly.
you're right. There's real pain there, but there's real opportunity on the other side of that.
Exactly. There's so much opportunity to understand the technology and learn it and figure out how to use it in a way that makes you valuable to the economy, right? It makes you valuable to the
Yep.
world. And I think, I mean, you have experience of this with yourself, with your two sons who are in the same age bracket as me. Like you see how, and you're starting franchise AIQ with one of your sons because you realize that this is an important thing for the youth of today to learn, and not to say, if you're not going to become an AI expert, you're not going to, have a job in the next 5 years. But you even see in white collar professions that aren't getting axed, right? Like lawyers, for example. If you're a lawyer who isn't learning how to use AI in your daily production to become more productive and become more efficient, like you're going to get outpaced by everybody. And I think it just goes to be the same for entities, companies as a whole. If you're not learning how to use this technology to amplify your business, not only in marketing, in sales, but also in operations to make yourself more efficient, you're just going to get outpaced by the people who are. And
Yeah.
so I think that,
Their competition who does it can cut their prices. They can do the same thing,
yeah,
but they can do it with less people or less
yep,
costs. And so they can undercut you, and you
yep,
get into this race of commoditization as well, where, there's going to be AI is going to allow people to be more efficient, which is going to lead to more commoditization because
mm-hmm,
people are going to start competing more and more on price because they can go, well, I just cut my prices by, $1,000 on our roof because I just saved, I don't know, 50 grand a year because I was able to let go, Sally, who answers our phones, and I replaced her
yep,
with an AI voice, receptionist. And so that savings, I'm going to go ahead and cut our roof costs by, whatever,
yep.
$500 each,
Yeah. Or you
you'll
could keep the prices the same, have higher margins, and then they have more capital to deploy to increase marketing, bring in more talent, et cetera. This happened with a
exactly.
client of ours, Dan, of Fence King down in Louisiana. He replaced one of his many receptionists that they have, who was costing $75,000 a year, plus payroll taxes, plus benefits, plus all that other stuff. He cut them, and now he can use that same money to then go reinvest in other angles,
And
right? And
marketing,
so
yeah, and get more
it's
leads and grow. Yeah.
exactly. It's insane because I've seen it happen in real time. And it's like, wow, this has
Yeah.
been a thing that people have talked about for years. And oh, but AI is gonna, everyone's gonna, take over the world with AI. And it's like, yes, but you don't really understand how it happens and what the actual direction of that curve is until you see it. And so Dan, my client of mine, him and the angles that he's taking and what he's been doing over the past 6 months of us working together is blowing my mind. And I'm like, wow, if people aren't like Dan in the next, year or two, they're gonna get
That's my
destroyed.
point. It's the
Yeah.
implementation and the deployment of the AI technology. And
Yep.
obviously he had you guiding him there, right?
Yep.
And actually deploying it into his business, that's when he saw the difference, right?
Yeah.
Before that, it's just like, oh, cool. Oh, wow. Maybe this would maybe help me, or, I hope my competitors aren't, using us too much and outpacing me, all these different things that company owners think about.
Right.
But that's my point, is like, stop thinking about the, like, find a George,
Right.
find a Lane, find somebody who can walk alongside you and help you deploy this today. Because as soon as Dan deployed it, there's an immediate like notice,
Yeah.
like, wow, that is like, there's some things there's very few things you can do in a business that you go, I can see the positive effects of that like immediately.
Today. Yeah.
And when you implement, today, like now, and when you implement some things around AI into your business, like you see immediate impact, like it's like
Yeah.
immediate. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
It is really cool. It is really cool. Awesome. Well, we're about to wrap here, and there's a tradition that we have at the on the podcast where I ask 3 to 4 rapid fire questions at the
All right,
end to just give a little bit of extra sauce. So,
you got it.
one thing that I wanted to ask you, rapid fire, is what's one marketing or visibility myth that a lot of roofers or home service contractors still believe in that you would like to bust?
One myth. Well, I think we've talked about it a lot today, but that AI, is something to put off for the future. It's cool, but let it evolve. It's new. No, that's a myth. The myth, the reality is, you better get implementing it now if you want to maintain a competitive advantage. If you don't want to lose a competitive advantage, and all it takes is 2 or 3 competitors in your market to move now, and you wait a little bit, and you don't need 100 of them though to move. You need only a couple of them to move now. That's the big difference now, right? So that's one myth, is like, wait and see. It'll be okay. This is something you've never experienced before in business. I've been in business for 30 years. This is the most exciting and the most scariest kind of time I've ever had in business. And I'm really, really honest, to be honest. I just had that conversation with my previous appointment. Um,
Yeah.
his name is George, actually, as well. But he's
Shout
up
out.
in Canada. He's an enterprise executive in marketing, and he's been a contact of mine for many years. And we were just talking, and I just said, he's been in the business, like, for me, I've been in this business for 15 years. George's actually been in the business longer than I have in terms of marketing, advertising. And I said, George, like, this is, I really feel like I'm really excited. Like I is exciting, and I love what I can do with it, and like it's invigorating, and I'm excited about business, but at the same time I'm scared as hell. Like it's changing my business, and I see it's going to change everything in our world, and so it's a little scary too. Like, I don't really know where this is all going to go and how fast it's all going to move. But it is exciting, and so
Yeah.
I would say, just don't fall into this myth of wait and see, it'll be okay. This, like I said, this is a bullet train, and you better hop on, or you're either on it or you're off it. So
That's
that's the
awesome.
first myth.
That's awesome. Second question. What should someone be looking for when looking for an AI implementer, right? Looking for someone to help walk alongside them. What are some of the key things that they should be looking for to know that this person isn't just going to take my money and run, I guess you could say?
I mean, I think for me, the answer to that question is, look for people who add value first and ask for money second. There's lots of salespeople out there, lots of people who will be happy to take your money, but won't do anything to actually add value to the relationship before they ask for money. That's just, I kind of learned that, I think, that lesson the most from the book The Go-Giver. That's a principle, obviously, in life and in business, but is, give before taking. Don't be a taker, be a giver. But I think that's a really good principle, just to, in any kind of strategic relationship, trusted advisor relationship, AI implementer / consultant type of relationship. Look for people who add value and are not just there to take the money. And that, usually, you can kind of feel that.
Yeah.
You can kind of pick up on that based on, how communications go. And I always try to, like, literally give something away, the value, something of real value, for free before I ever ask for any, money or any compensation back. And so I think if you can find the people like that, then they're those are the kind of people that they'll invest. They'll invest in you, they'll invest in your business, they'll care. And that's who you are going to. So I think that's it's more of a quality of a person than anything else. Is you got to look for that. There's a lot of people out there who will talk right now. But if you find that genuine person, usually the genuine person also is not like lying and hyping everything up. They're actually like, they have, real knowledge, something real to give. And they demonstrate that before they ask for money, by giving value away before they ask for the compensation.
Right. That's awesome. And then final question, where can people go to learn a little bit more about the Spark framework, kind of your philosophies, and and the variety of different businesses that you own, operate, and
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The sparkframework.com is my book website. You can get the book on Amazon as well. So if you go to Amazon, just search for The Spark Framework, you'll find my book come up as well. And then also you can go to my lanehouk.com personal site, LANEHOUK.com personal website. And that has kind of that's kind of my evolving bio as an entrepreneur. I have new ventures, and so I have kind of a historical information about what I've done, my book, and what I'm doing today, and all that. So that kind of evolves with me as I evolve in my career.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Lane, I appreciate you hopping on. Thank you for dropping the AI knowledge. I really like listening to people who have a lot more expertise in something that I don't. So hearing you talk about SEO and AEO and kind of the changing world there has been really beneficial. So I appreciate you. Thank you for hopping on, and we'll talk very soon.
Awesome. Thank you, George. Appreciate having me on your podcast, buddy. Hope your audience gets some real value out of this episode.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bet. Take care, buddy. See you.